But I have better radiation. We'll agree.
You're gonna talk about the mobile.
We're gonna talk about the milk. Well, whatever.
You're not doing eminent domain, are you?
It's too late.
Well, no, we'll find out maybe.
Unfortunately,
That's a Kelly.
Yeah, it's not selling, always has been.
The farmers won't sell.
If you all take your seats, we'll go ahead and get started.
Oh, yeah.
Item 10. Pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for attending on this wet and snowy day, our first day of winter, I think. And our first action will be on the minutes of October 4th, 2022. Should have been out, it's in your packet. It was sent out in the email. Any additions, corrections, comments? Motion to approve. Mr. Toffel approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Odell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So moved. Do we have any public comment today?
No.
Is there anybody in the audience that wants to make a public comment? If not, we'll just move on. Let's go to planning 3.1, resolution 2222, adoption of the updated performance measure targets. Mr. Weber?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Technical Planning Committee and guests. So I call your attention to Resolution 22-22, which is about setting updated performance measure targets. Found on pages 3 to 8 of your agenda packets. I know it looks like a very long list of performance measure targets that we're going to get through today in this resolution. And this is because these are all federally required, and we have to revisit them every 4 years. And so it is now time to revisit them. Actually, the first set of them relate to safety, which we have to revisit every single year. But these federally required performance measures have to be coordinated between INDOT, the Indiana Department of Transportation, as well as NERC. So you can find these performance measures on the tables on pages 4 through 7 of your agenda packets, and or actually 4 through 8. You'll note that these federally required performance measures already appear in our 2 required planning documents, both our NWI 2050 plan as well as our fiscal years 2022 to 2024, 2026 transportation improvement programs. So you can see in these tables the original text that contains these performance measures, as well as the amended text that would change the measures themselves. So quickly walking us through what the changes are to these performance measures. The first 5 relate to safety, so the number of fatalities. The target has changed from 876 in calendar year 2022 to 894.2 in calendar year 2023. That is unfortunately an increase, but that is based on the trends in the data. You're looking at the rate of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. The next one changes from 1.076 in 2022 to 1.088 in 2023. Again, unfortunately, an increase based on trends in the data. The number of serious injuries on our roads goes from 2,998.2 to 3,348.1. That's also an increase based on trends in the data. But if you came to our Surface Transportation Committee meeting back in October, you've seen that there are some encouraging trends in these measures in some of our counties, at least in our region, but these are the statewide measures. The rate of serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled goes from 3.675 to 4.068. Again, that is unfortunately not an improvement. That is getting worse for the rate of serious injuries. That's just based on trends in the data. And then finally, the number of non-motorized serious injuries and fatalities. The target goes from 344.5 in 2022 to 399.6 in 2023. That's also obviously not an improvement based on trends in the data. Then the next set of performance measures relates to the air quality emissions for the precursors of ozone. So we're talking about volatile organic compounds, VOC reduction from CMAQ projects. Those are congestion mitigation air quality funded projects. The target goes from 1,600 kilograms per day to 590.00 kilograms per day. That's just based on the number of projects that are in the CMAQ program, in the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. The NOx reductions, which are oxides of nitrogen, goes from 1,600 kilograms per day in 2019 and 2,200 kilograms per day in 2021 to 690 kilograms per day in 2023 and 725 kilograms per day in 2025. Again, this is based on the listing of CMAQ projects in the statewide transportation improvement program. The PM10, which is particulate matter under 10 microns in diameter reduction. So these are not necessarily ozone precursors, but there are other just air quality issues that we have in the region. The target goes from 0.30 kilograms per day in 2019 and 0.50 kilograms per day in 2021 to 0.02 kilograms per day in 2023 and 0.03 kilograms per day in 2025. That's based on, again, the listing of projects in the statewide transportation improvement program under the CMAQ program. Now looking, those are the air quality emissions measures. Now we're looking at the infrastructure condition measures. So the percent of interstate pavements in good condition in our region, the target changes from 84.24% by 2019 and 50.00% by 2021. 4 years later, we're looking at a target of 60.00% pavements, interstate pavements in good condition by 2023 and 62.00% interstate pavements in good condition by 2025. As you can see, that's actually a slight improvement because, as you'll note, we had to revise the target during the last 4-year period down to 50% by 2021, but now we're going up to 60 and 62. So our interstates should be getting in better condition in the next 2 and 4 years. As far as the interstate pavements in poor condition, the target goes from 0.80% in 2021 to 1.00% in 2023 and 1.00% by 2025. So ever so slightly more interstate pavements in poor condition according to the specs out in the field. And then looking at the non-interstate pavement conditions, that target in good condition goes from 40.00% in 2021 to 50.00% by 2023 and 48% by 2025. So an initial uptick, definitely an improvement from pavements in good condition on the non-interstate national highway system. These are the pavements on the major arterial systems, like US 41 and US 30. Looking at the percent of non-interstate NHS pavements in poor condition, that target goes from 3.10% by 2021 to 1.50% by 2023 as well as 2025. That's also an improvement, so there's less pavements in poor condition on those important facilities. And then looking at the bridge condition, the target goes from, in good condition, from 47.20% in 2021 to 49.00% by 2023 and 47.50% by 2025. So our bridges are supposed to get slightly better, at least on the national highway system. And then final series of targets, or there's one more in bridge condition, that's the percentage of NHS bridge area in poor condition. That goes from 3.10% by 2021 to 3.00% by 2023 and 2025. So slightly less bridges in poor condition, which is an improvement. Now looking at the travel time reliability performance measure targets, we're talking about percent of person miles traveled on the interstate that are reliable, going from 92.8% in 2021 to 93.0% in 2023 and 93.5% in 2025. That's an improvement. That means that there's going to be more reliable travel, less unpredictable travel times on the interstates. And finally, the percent of person miles traveled on the non-interstate national highway system that are reliable, the target goes from 89.8% in 2021 to 93.0% in 2023, 93.5% in 2025. That's also definitely an improvement, meaning that travel is going to expect to become more reliable on these major national highway system facilities that are not interstates like US 30 and US 41. And then finally, the truck travel time reliability index, the target goes from 1.30 by 2021 to 1.32 by 2023 and 1.30 by 2025. In this measure, it's worse to be higher, so we're expected to see a slight worsening in truck travel time reliability between 2021 and 2023, but then it's supposed to level off by 2025 down to 1.30. These were all based on trends in the data and from correspondence between NERC staff and INDOT staff, as well as this resolution went for the Surface Transportation Committee on October 18th and received a favorable recommendation there. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know this is a lot of performance measure targets.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Weber?
You know, include this in the minutes. How the heck do you go through all this stuff without losing your mind? Kill me.
Thank goodness for staff.
For differences in expertise.
Well, This is going to appear before our full emergency commission meeting on December 8th. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to recommend to the commission,
Second.
It's a favorable recommendation.
favorable recommendation, thank you.
Second.
Any other discussion, comments? Good work. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So moved. Is there anybody against?
Pardon?
Anybody against?
I have a general question of Scott and staff. Do you guys have very many times when the general public calls you and asks you to explain these types of things? Do they take the time to read your reports well enough to do that? And it's not a criticism of you, it's a criticism of public engagement.
Well, I think that's something that we'd always strive to improve in, and I think getting better at more visualizations and more on our website and more on our social media might help to that end. But I will say that, yes, it has been a challenge in terms of getting substantive feedback on that from the public. Definitely.
It's difficult to understand for the general public. You know.
I mean, keep in mind, these performance measures are very prescribed in terms of how they're measured. So
Right.
they have to be measured using very specific data sources and with specific kind of metrics in mind. So I think that sometimes it's hard to translate that into public knowledge.
Thank you.
And they have the other goal of being consistent and getting approvals from the state and federal agencies in line with what they do. So you can kind of set performance standards, and I appreciate the fact that they're using the language of at least or not more than for most of these performance standards. As you recall, a few years ago, most of them were saying targeting a number
Right.
of deaths on the highway.
Right.
We want to have no more than those. And truly, I think the goals of our citizens is to reduce all of these impacts. And we'll try. Next, we have Northwest Indiana 50/50 update on the draft technical papers. Those were also on the website and available links for the meeting today. If you choose to download it, they're there.
Thank you, Chairman. And good morning. I am part one of two, today talking about a couple of parts of our 2050 plan update. Transit and I believe freight have been dealt with before, and now we have received the first report of the finding meeting for the active transportation and land use elements. I will be taking, of course, active transportation. E-Man will be dealing with land use following my presentation. So I have a lot of slides, but I'll go through them pretty quickly. But the first one, just kind of give you a little background. This was developed by RDG, a consulting firm from Omaha, Nebraska. They also did the work with the land use plan. Now, it is a document, when it's all said and done, supplementing the Greenways and Blueways plan from 2020 and their 2050 plan. We're also building on municipal plans with this document. We are focusing on street infrastructure primarily with this element. Trails are something that we have done a very good job in, and it is a process that is well underway, and we have communities kind of falling over each other to get trails developed, which is a great thing. But we also have to have people focus on the on-street elements as well. We have to get people to those trails. We really have to create an environment where people can ride and walk anywhere in this region safely. And so we do help propose policies for local consideration. We do also have many public engagement results that I will talk about momentarily. There are also mapping key destinations within this element and analyzing road topologies in the region as well, and talk about what type of improvements are going to be required on the type of roads that we have within Northwest Indiana. One of the first things they did was look at our trail network. Of course, our trails would be classified as our non-motorized superhighways. And so we took a look at that in detail about what's on the ground now. And then the consulting firm took a look at what has been planned. And if you put those two together, you have a pretty comprehensive list of corridors that crisscross throughout Northwest Indiana. There is one, I believe, corridor here not shown to St. John that is being actively planned for at this time, but otherwise, pretty much all of these corridors have been planned or will be planned for actively, and we're looking forward to seeing those expand throughout our region. Other parts of analysis talked about the 15-minute city, the idea that we should be able to walk or bike from our house within 15 minutes comfortably, and talk about where those centers would be. Also kind of surrounding them with our livable centers within Northwest Indiana, which have been previously defined with other planning efforts. Getting into the many types of surveys, and before I kind of rattle all this off, we did a survey, came out with many of our workshops that we did throughout Northwest Indiana. We also had public events that we were at. The county fairs were our most prominent locations, and we had an online survey that was out there for many a moon. I think we coalesced maybe over 300 responses throughout Northwest Indiana, maybe a little lower than we were hoping for, but we did get some pretty interesting results here. If we took a look at the very first one, that is the very top one. Again, hard to read. What I'll say here is that the place of residence of the survey respondents, we got the most from Valparaiso and the surrounding area, second by Cherryville and Maryville, Crown Point, and it continues down the line, Munster, Griffith, Dyer, and then all the way down, we get the county areas, and the last one being 5% of the bottom, Cedar Lake, Lowell, and the surrounding area. So that is how it all panned out when people were taking the responses. The age does an almost a bit of a bell curve here. We have responses here in the 50 to 60 year-old range were the ones who responded the most actively. Actually, the 30 to 60, I'm sorry, it's a much larger cohort. 30 to 60 had the largest response rate here, and only second was beyond that, from 50 to 65. So, again, this is on par with most survey results, nothing too extravagant, although we did have quite a bit under 18 that did respond as well. We did, I believe we did have some outreach to younger people, and I think that is what's been reflected accurately here. A little easier to read here is transportation issues of greatest importance in this region. And as you see here, road safety will always take the top notch when you talk about elements or parts of a community, why people will move to them. Usually highway access ranks first because it is a need. You need that, okay? We all have cars. We have to get around by cars. So obviously road safety is going to be a very big concern. But then right underneath there you have bike paths and sidewalks ranking a very close second. And again, that's more of a want. That's what people do want. They want areas where they can get out safely by bike or by foot and get around their community safely. So again, nothing too out of the ordinary there regarding results on national averages. And then the features within a 15-minute walk from home. Right up on the top, you have the playground, community park, and then the elementary school. You have the restaurants, a trail. So, and then you have convenience store, grocery store, and it kind of goes on down the line here. So, obviously, we still have a high degree of interest in recreation facilities for those who are trying to access different destinations within their community. That's expected. We do have, as you see here, a number, or the third one over from the left, elementary school, is a very curious statistic in the sense that we promote safe routes to schools in this region, and we have been for many years, and we have been seeing that grow nationally. And I think if anyone ever tried to drive around an elementary school at 8 a.m. or whatever time they start, will understand what I'm talking about. If we can get more children to walk and bike, the less we're going to see more of these backups at schools, and of course the healthier kids will be, and instilling with them lifelong healthy habits. So that was a good thing to see there. And moving on, important destinations for bike and pet transportation. So if we did actually ask them about getting around and kind of thinking more utilitarian, you can see grocery stores in downtown, again, shopping areas, possibly job centers and so forth. Those come up right there at the top. And so getting around your community to get maybe the gallon of milk or the stick of butter or whatever, instead of going out for a huge, hatchback filling excursion to your local supermarket, many people just need a few things to pick up. And so this is kind of important when it comes down to people's interest in destinations. And so we kept that in mind as we were planning. And the frequency participants of bicycle use, you can see we have a high response rate of never using a bicycle, which is, again, we expect about a quarter, maybe a fifth or a quarter of people in society in whole not ever using a bicycle. And then, of course, another 18% is very frequently. But we do have the people that do use it once or twice a month and continuing on downward. So, roughly nearly half are people that are actually using them more often. Again, the frequency of bicycle use is going to be connected to the actual safety of the community they live in and the destinations that are able to be accessed. If it's not safe to get somewhere, you're not going to walk and bike there. Okay, we don't all own a death wish. And people are like, well, no one's ever going to walk on US 30. Never. Sure, they won't now. I mean, you have to design it for it. So again, it is a true build that they will come or they will ride in this particular case. Purposes of bicycle trips, and again, this plays out exactly as we have seen throughout the years. The number one reason why people use bicycles is for exercise or working out. And of course, then number two, of course, that's way up there, almost over 57%. 36% are trips to parks and recreational activities. We have family outings under that. But then I don't ride a bike, again, in that 1/5 range. But again, most of those respondents, as you can see here, these are recreational outlets for people to use, and of course, for also health benefits. And we should never put that down. I mean, the activity of getting people out and moving around and being healthy is very critical in our society. The reason why we have an obesity crisis is because we have a physical inactivity crisis. People don't have outlets for getting outside and getting fit and so forth. And so the more we provide that, the more opportunity people have to become fit. This is why European nations, even though they make smoke like chimneys in some of their countries, they still have better BMI or body mass index than we ever will have. Because they're always walking and biking around their destinations because they have societies that foster that and respect that. We just don't. So although we are taking care of ourselves with what we eat, we are still sitting down too often on our couches or in our cars. So, moving on. Most important improvements that people are looking for regarding non-motorized transportation, and as you can see right there on the top, better sidewalks in cities. Of course, more trails. Trails are always going to be up there on the top. But the better sidewalks is a big consideration. Sidewalks have always been kind of the lost child of transportation network. It's built. Then, of course, the local entity doesn't assume responsibility for its maintenance, so it usually gets hoisted upon the residents that live there, which, in my estimation, is the wrong way of thinking. It should be part and parcel of the public infrastructure improvement plan of any community to do regular sidewalk repairs, but that's the problem that we have. It's just something that people like to push off to other people or other groups, and we end up with our problems, with our gaps, with our broken sidewalks. Of course, these make it difficult for people to get around, and again, if that's the case, less people are going to get around. And of course, trails. So obviously, these are huge improvements. And then we have others as well talking about, with bike lanes, and we talk about better routes to city centers and so forth. And so moving on from there, we have, this was a series of stuff. I'm just taking a snapshot. Throughout our public engagement process, the feedbacks that we were trying to accumulate from the public, we gave them kind of these visual preference surveys, looking at these different options in communities and kind of gauging people's feelings about them. We have the buffered bike lane here in the Calm Street, and of course the off-street separated lane, the side path. And you can see the positive scores below, if you can read them there. The buffered bike lane on this slide at least would rank the lowest. Again, people riding on the street is not something that a lot of people are comfortable with. Experienced riders will probably be a lot more, in fact, experienced riders don't even need a lane, they'll probably just poo-poo that. But people that are just trying to get around recreationally or casually, that is still something very intimidating to them. A calm street helped out a little better, and we're talking about chicanes in this case, bump outs. I believe speed tables are something that a lot of communities should be looking into right now. We have speeding as a big issue throughout not only our region, throughout the country, and we're seeing more and more the employment of speed tables. And these are also able to relate well to public works equipment like snow plows and the like. We always get that complaint that the plows are going to have a problem in there. It's like, well, I think people going 50 and a 20 is a problem. So, you know, you're gonna have to balance that. But we think speed tables are the answer, and we do address those. We have the off-street separated lane that gets a better score, as you can see, because the farther away from the street, the higher your score is gonna be. And of course, right there, your side path also gets a very positive score as well. I think off-road trails is in the 170s. I mean, that's like, you know, right up there at the top of the food chain. So these are all expected. But again, we want to make sure people understand that these are improvements that can be readily applied to any community. And we want to make sure our policymakers see this so they can also take that into account and make it work. And then we talked about different areas. There's a series of maps here. This one, hard to see on the screen as much, but this one is showing you the town centers, the South Shore stations. We also talk about grocery stores. We have hamlets here, and we kind of layer on our existing our existing trail network. And you can see that the trails are nice, but they don't connect all over the place. So we are going to need a lot of help in getting our on-street network kind of in this way buttressed and fortified, and hoping to get out to more of these places throughout the region. And again, this is just for reference sake, but we do go through the road typology and how that will work with bicycle and pedestrian traffic from urban collectors all the way down to trails. And of course, trails being the top of the line for non-motorized travel, but urban collectors and how you would assign different types of improvements to these different types of road typologies. And we want to make sure, again, policymakers have that understanding as well in this document. This is the composite of all of it coming together with the trails and the urban centers and the possible road connections that are between all these areas. I'll blow this up a little bit here in northern LaPorte County, and it's not the easiest to see there, but you have the trails kind of in that dark line. It's probably better if I go over here. Wait, do I have laser? Do I have laser ability? Watch out, Kevin. Yeah, okay, good. So as I'm showing you here, these are showing you roadways that are up for possible connection purposes throughout our region that would connect different areas together, where trails are most likely not going to be feasible. We understand that not all this region, as much of it has been connected with trails, not all of it is able to be connected safely with trails, but we can certainly work on roadway connections to make this happen, and that is what is being proposed throughout this. Now, when we talk about roadway improvements, as I said, with the road typologies, that comes in different flavors. Some roads could have a side path. Many roads don't. Many roads could use signage or just maybe a sheriff, something, a painted symbol on the roadway to get people through there. You know, we have, I will point my friend out, Charles here, my coworker, who is an extreme bicyclist. He rides throughout all of the southern part of this region. He probably can tell you every stone throughout the entire part of these roadways. And he'll tell you that many of those roads are very safe for riding. They get very, very little traffic, and the traffic that does come down there does respect them and gives them wide berth for the most part. But of course, that's not usually the case when you get to higher volumes of traffic. And in many cases, like a US 30, where we do need bike and pedestrian access, you would not put people on the road there. You'll probably create side paths that are buffered, that keep people separated. And those are the things we have to think about as we go through this. Speed limits matter, the amount of traffic matters, and so on and so forth. And that's all I have, at least in my part. So as I said, this is the finding meeting, part one. There'll be other parts. There's 3 parts in all when it is all said and done, and we're going to go through this again as we continue to roll out these certain segments of the 2050 plus update. And again, we're hoping to roll this up and finish it off in May, but we'll have a lot more time to come before you and before the public with our recommendations. So any questions I could answer? Woo, yeah, Kay, have her hand up, yeah.
The speed tables, has there been any evaluation of their impact on air quality because of the stop and start?
Well,
People like me drive too fast and have to slam.
well,
on the brakes.
here's the thing about speed tables. That's a great question. I think you could get a lot more analysis out of speed bumps. Speed tables don't slow you down to a stop, or speed bumps will. I mean, people almost stop on speed bumps. Speed tables will keep you at the speed limit that is posted. And if you decide to go faster than that, you'll be Evel Knievel. So yes, I mean, there is some stoppage involved at speed tables, but not nearly as extreme as speed bumps. And that's the thing. It's like, I think 45th Avenue is a big example in Highland when Erie-Lackawanna crosses. I think that is a 30-mile-an-hour speed table. So it's designed. If you go over at 30 miles, you hardly even notice it. But you go over that, you're going to notice it. So it's trying to give people the understanding that you gotta slow down, and you're right, you do have to stop and starts, but in time, people will understand, okay, I've gotta go this speed, and hopefully it'll get in their mind, they're gonna have to slow down, so.
Your example helps answer my second question, and that is marking of a speed table. I spent time in Oregon a couple of weeks ago, and they have a modification that's probably between the speed table and the speed bump that weren't always painted. And if you are going a little fast, it is an excursion, and it's very descriptive language creating experience. Because there was no marking on this,
Well-
and when you're driving at night, unfamiliar, very frightening. So how will speed tables be marked in general? It's not everyone's gonna put the volume of bells and whistles like it is on 45th Avenue.
Well, they all need to have those markings if they're to be done.
They have to have the flashing light and.
The flashing light is kind of an optional thing. They certainly have to have the reflective paint and the markings ahead of it, so people are seeing that it's coming up.
Okay.
And then, of course, you will have the reflective signage on the side of it. I think you get the flashing lights and everything on 45th because it's such a busy area. And you also have a hawk signal above it as well, so. And it's a busy trail. So you got all that coming together, so you need the flashing lights. But I think if you have just a simple, maybe mid-block crossing or what have you, or just a speed table to slow people down in a subdivision or what have you, I think street markings are perfectly fine. Especially if it's only a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit to begin with, so.
I think it'd be useful for people listening, or maybe some people in attendance, if they don't know what a speed table is. It's basically an extended speed bump. It'll be
You go
first
up, then you
bump,
come,
and it'll
then
be
you come down.
22 feet,
Yep.
20 feet long, and then drop off again.
Yep.
So in some respects, if you're speeding, you're probably going to get watched. But
Well, yeah, I mean, you'll learn your lesson the first time, but it tells you very, the speed table, come down, stay at your speed limit, you'll be fine, that's how it's designed. But again, these things take time. The PED countdown crossing signals that you see that count down. When I first started here 20 years ago, that wasn't even thought about. INDOT had nothing to do with it. They said that, although they were taking flight in other places, but now it's commonplace. And the speed tables, in my opinion, are going to be the next thing because we need that physical reminder to slow traffic down. Because unfortunately, if you design a street like this, you only want them to go this speed, it ain't going to happen. So you got to make sure that those physical, like maybe even narrowing lanes in a way, is a way of keeping traffic slow. Or just putting in a ton of stoplights that people will never want to drive there again, like the middle of where Purdue is. US 26 at the levee when they did all that, and people are complaining. It's like, well, it's a pedestrian area. There is a way around here. So those are the ways to consider it. Yeah, David, you had a
I was
question?
just gonna add a couple of things. The speed tables on Lake Street and NOAA, they do their job.
There you go.
And I can tell that, if the bus has got to slow down, that bus is probably not going the speed limit.
Exactly.
And they don't have flashes. I'm not even sure if they have signs. I'll have to double check. I think there are 4 or 5 of them in the new section in downtown Newark. Just wanted to highlight what you were saying. You mentioned US 30 twice. I've actually had conversations with people who will get off the BMX at US 30 and then ride to their destination. So, yeah, it's got to be, it takes fortitude to do that. But they do it, and we need some kind of bike facility out there to connect to the transit and to different relatives.
Well, many people walk too, as you know, David.
Mhm.
And I see it, Thomas sees it.
Oh, yeah.
and We're always taking pictures of, hey, this is another one. And it's sad, it's very sad. I mean, not everyone owns a car, we understand that. But we're very thankful that GPTC gets down there, but it can't go everywhere. And, there's so many employment areas there in the Route 30 corridor, just to name one. Mall area, I mean, it's just tons of employment centers, but people can't get there directly. And if there was just a safe sidewalk, it wouldn't be as much of a big deal, but you don't even have that. And the way they have designed 30 over the years is just keeping bike and peds as far away as possible, but that's where the destinations are. So it makes no sense.
One of the reasons why we're even looking at some kind of bike share or bike rental in our system is to extend that first mile, last mile utility. And even though I don't know if we're going to be putting any facilities right there at Century Plaza, there are a lot of people who do go there. So when it comes to the metrics that we've been using to try to identify where we would put
racks or bike share kiosks on our system, it does rank high, not, high like downtown Gary or downtown Hammond, but there's utility there. But without any facilities, it would be putting, a couple of bikes in a wilderness.
Absolutely. So as the chairman had pointed out, this report is on our website, and so if you have any other questions, I'm easily found. And with that, I will now bring up Eman with her presentation. Thank you.
We're going to go to the land use element.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm just, this is the second report of the 2050 Plus Plan. And a finding meeting, as Mitch mentioned before, was done by the same consultant, RTG. And to start this part one of the plan, we actually scheduled a number of meetings with communities. And the consultant NERC staff, we met with the community, try to understand the trends, the issue that they're having, and also touring the area and look at their upcoming or any future plan that is happening, so to consider it in our plan. So that was the beginning, and the consultant had to tour the area many times to understand the pattern of the area and the trends. So first, we're starting as a finding meaning to look first at the existing land use patterns here and how it looks as we see. We all know, we are familiar, but like we had to look again about any changes happened within our region. Population trends, which is really important to look into that if we wanted to plan for the future, because we wanted to see where is the growth happening and how to put policy based on this type of growth. Is that like a healthy growth, or like should we have a different policy to control the growth in some area? We looked at the comprehensive plans of communities to see what they are planning and what's their future needs to also be considered in our plan. Housing trends, we are not doing like a housing plan, we are not doing that, but like we have an issue of affordable housing within our, it's a universal issue, it's not just here in Northwest Indiana. So we looked at the supply and demand, and do we have affordable housing that meets all the incomes that we have within our region. I will explain that later. And then policy areas is to just divide the Northwest Indiana to a different area. We have industrial area, we have the dune land area, we have suburban and rural area. And then that was very important. So to decide the policies of the 2050 plus plan, it was important to look at the common theme between communities and put them together. Focus corridors, that's like for certain corridors that like we have a focus corridor, we have a major corridor that like we are encouraged to be a commercial corridors. We have also other corridors which is more like within the urban area. So that's the area that we are encouraging to have like more trail and pedestrian accessibility within this area. So as we look at the area here, so we have the Northwest Industrial Area as usual. It's in the Gary, Chicago, and also Whiting, Hammond. That's the focus of all of our industrial area. We have also contiguous West Edge residential, and that's starting west of Broadway all the way to the state line. So that's really, like a high density residential area within this area. And then we have the transect or layering. So we have after that the going to suburban and then going to a rural. And that's divide the region to a different areas. We are looking at different issues like in Gary, for example, like we have demolition, we have some vacancy. The coverage is very large compared to the existing population and employment and industrial area. So we look at the different things, like how we're gonna work with the city of Gary on that to see what's in their future plan. Various commercial configurations, so we have the area around the South Lake Mall, around the 41, and especially area like South Lake Mall, we're looking at they don't have enough residential within this area, like within a mile or 2 miles. They have only 5% residential, and the balance is all commercial. And that's a big concern, which we're gonna look at area like that, how to balance between housing and employment. And then we have the major open space area, which is mostly the dual lands, and also we have the north part of Lake County and Porter County, and LaPorte County. So, and that's how we provide some conservation to these areas. So that's the initial analysis.
Iman,
Yes,
pardon my ignorance, can you give me the definition of ex-urban again, please?
exurban, like it's a residential area outside of urban core, like when you come to an area like outside, it's mostly outside the municipal boundary, unincorporated area. If you have a
Unincorporated areas,
development,
okay.
yeah, if you have a development within this area, so you still get a lot of residential, but it's not really urban area.
Gotcha, thank you.
So in this table, it's showing the population. Here, the development of population growth from 1980 to 2020, which we don't have much increase of the population. Maybe we had in the 1980 was like, we have like a good number of increase, but like when it comes to the urban area, which I think this one, is that showing? Yeah. So when we come to the urban area, for example, in Lake County, here it was like 92%, and then in 2010 it became 90%, and then 2020 it became 91.5. So the urban area, which we do expect, the rural area is increasing, as we see here in Lake County, from 7.6 became 9%. And then again, like in 2020, we had like a less development happening. But when you compare from the 1980 to 2020, we can see that like it's a more development going in the rural area. So that's showing for all the counties, but like when it comes even to Porter County, we have it almost the same. From 1918 to 2020 is not that much increase, which we don't have much urban area in Porter County. And we have like a Portage, Chester, and Valparaiso. That's a major community urbanized area. In LaPorte County here, we have actually less urban area from 65% to 59%. And then the rural area here increased. So we have the population increased in comparison to 1980. So because development is going in the unincorporated area. I know this is like maybe a complicated number, but it's showing here again the percentage in every county, the average annual growth. So we have in Lake County almost 0.11%. The rural area decreased in Lake County, and overall they don't have much increase. It's 0.05. I have to use a pointer maybe. So it's a very, very minor increase in Lake County. And then when it comes to Porter County, we have like the growth is happening within the urban area and rural area, but they have like a more increase in comparison to Lake County. LaPorte County also they don't have much increase. It's a little more than Lake County, but they lost more in the urban area and they gained more in the rural area. Overall, we don't have much increase in the population, and that's, like it's different than like we actually projected in the 2040 plan that we would have more increase, but it did not happen. Looked at the population change here again between 1980 to 20 and 2000 to 22, and it's happening mostly in the San John area, Winfield, some of the west of Valparaiso, and some other area within Lake County. So in between 2010 and 2020, we still San John and Winfield also are the majority of the growth. So the development outside municipalities here, we have Lake County almost 26% or 27% that is population outside of the Lake County, which is the unincorporated area. In Porter County, 41%, which is we have like a significant increase in the unincorporated area, and then LaPorte County almost 29%. And that's something that like maybe we have a specific policy about this area with the increase in unincorporated area. Mitch mentioned the 15 minutes city, which is, as you know, like the studies shows that 40% of our trips are 2 miles or less. And that's something should be considered. If we have 40% of the trips within 2 miles, I think in the concept of the 15-minute city or within 2 miles, either by bike or walking, and I don't want to go much because I know that Mitch already explained that about like in this one specifically, we wanted to look at the land use in relationship to the 15 minutes. So people has to walk to something, walking to school, walking to jobs, walking to grocery, and walking to amenities. You know, like, so if we have within the 15 minutes, we don't have enough amenities and destination that encouraging people to walk, and also look at how to improve the walkability within this area. Do we have the sidewalks? Do we have bike lanes for people to walk? So that's something that we analyze, and also look at the land use and see, you know, which area really need improvement to have the 15-minute walk successful within our region. Also, we have some barriers and how we do barrier remediations. We have roads, we have railroads, we have environmental area, wetlands, and, you know, like within this area. So we have, it's not like will be 100% feasible to walk within this area. So how to find the best way to achieve the 15 minutes walk. Here is in this one, we look at the long and recent terms here, and that's showing here the very high or increasing positive growth. For example, we have some communities, as I mentioned, Winfield, Crown Point, St. John, and Cedar Lake, and Lowell, they have really positive growth within this area. Lake County, the orange color here, in the unincorporated area, we have a negative rate, which I think this is like a good trend, so we're looking for. But when we look at the Porter and LaPorte County, which is having positive, but it's declining in some areas, as I mentioned, in Lake County. So this is just showing where is, and of course, the blue color, it's all losing negative to positive. And then we have the negative, which is stable in Lake County, Hammond, and some other area. The residential density still as it's in correlation with the population. As I mentioned, it's mostly in the west side of Lake County and along some major municipalities. I don't want to go so long with that, but these are the comprehensive plans that we map it all together, and to use it also for our analysis and the policy, and also for future growth. We're still working on that for, in phase two. The housing trends, that's really showing where is the housing is happening. Again, it's in Winfield and St. John. So that's all the new housing, or most of them, they have greater of almost 30% increase within this area. And you see around Valparaiso, also between Valparaiso and Chesterton, some area in Portage and south of Michigan City. So that's the housing trends, which is going with the population trends. This is a very important table. We have actually detailed number in the report that's showing really the owners, rentals, and the income category. So if we have like a white space, this one.
There you go.
Here you go. So this is like now in this one, like we are requiring like 58 housing, and we don't have that much. So the people, their income up to 25,000, they don't have enough housing that meets their income, or renting. Even the renting is too high for their income. We have enough supply for the people from 25,000 to 50,000 income, so we have a good supply or oversupply of that for renting and also for owning a house. Same for the 50,000 to 75,000, and then comes again to 75,000 to 100,000 household income. We should have about 40,000 housing available for this category, but we don't have enough rental or enough housing for this category of income. Same for the even higher income, 100,000 to 150,000. And what's happening that these people, if they don't have enough supply, they go take maybe from the housing that fit the income up to 100,000, which it causes issues. Like maybe they have a higher income, but they go for other housing category or a cheaper housing. So that shows, like the demand and what we are lacking, what type of housing. So we need to develop housing for people with a low income, even some high income. They need to satisfy their requirement within our region. And finally, the last one here, we identify some focus corridors, like a regional corridors or a big box corridors. And also we look at the urban commercial areas and scenic corridor and other focus corridor. So we're still working on that. That's in draft because we suggested more corridors, and it's going to be added to this map. So it's still in draft, and I really encourage everyone to look into the report because it has good numbers and so many things to develop. But here for comments, if you wanted to look and read the reports, we wanted comments on the different alternatives, talking about density, location, growth rates, redevelopment, also the focus corridor, if you have any suggestion of other corridors, and the relationship also to your community plans. If you think that we should focus on certain things based on your comprehensive plans or your future vision, that will be appreciated, and you can send me your comments if you have any specific comments when you go over the report. I don't want to go so long, but this is a summary of the land use elements. Now we just started phase 2, which is creating purpose, and we will also update you on that soon, maybe in a couple of months or so.
Are there any questions for now? Okay, please.
First of all, I just want to say, Mr. Chair, that I am fortunate that Northeast staff, everyone that's in this room, calls upon me to let me know what they're doing or ask the forum's opinion, and we really appreciate the opportunity to be engaged with all of your stuff, even though sometimes I get a little windy. I had one quick question, Iman. As you review the community's plans, are you capturing them and putting them into a portion of the NERC website so that if someone knows that NERC exists, but they don't know all the different communities, they could look there and find those community plans and zoning information and such, or not?
That's a good point. I think we're gonna provide a link to all the comprehensive plan because we have really collected all the updated comprehensive plan from all communities. But we could do that. Add it under the land use section. We will have a link to all the plans.
That would be perfect, because I know that we internally have been struggling with how to collect all that data. And you know me, I don't like to reinvent the wheel. If somebody else has done the work, I'll just copy it. So, with their permission, of course. So if you're putting all those links together, let me know as you compile those, and Spencer will probably start working with you so that he can have a link to go to your site to get that stuff.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Nice job.
Any other questions, comments? Not? There we go.
Thank you.
Do you have any other presentations today pertaining to this? There's a couple more, or there's another thing on the website for the continuation of this plan, for the draft reports. They also include freight and transit, but we'll discuss those in another day. And staff always welcomes comments on any of the stuff that they have, so that'll help us in the long run. Next, we have programming, 4.1, notice of funding availability. Just information. Is Charles back there?
Yeah, I.
Kind of ignoring me.
Yes, what would you like to know?
Where are we at with it? Do we have public meetings coming up?
Applications are due Friday.
Yep.
I do that for the consultants because I'm a nice guy, because I don't believe people should be required to work on the weekends. So they're due Friday by the end of business, so get those to us. And then staff is going to review them and get back to the LPAs or get back to the consultants and let them know if there's any missing information or any inconsistencies. And then they'll go to communities for their review.
And more appreciative of the fact that we didn't do it during Thanksgiving week or after Thanksgiving. So the consultants, not only do you have your weekend free, but your travel plans for Thanksgiving here.
Yes.
All great.
I'm not a consultant, but I appreciate it being
Your bosses just look forward to you working on the weekends. I know your families like to have you at home, so I appreciate staff adjusting for that. And plus, on the applications, it's going to take you just as much time whenever you do it. So, but Friday is the deadline. This particularly affects the future TIP. What are we talking, 2025 to 2027?
We're looking, it's technically 24 to 28, but 24, 25, and 26 are already filled up. We're looking at mainly 27 and 28.
This is just our way of informing the elected officials who are making the decisions that we're not too late, we're early. So, and it takes several years.
It takes at least 3 years to do a federal aided project. And that's with no right of way on it. It's simple, and I say simple, a simple project where the environmental document would be like a PCE, where it wouldn't be fully, we don't have to delve into a whole lot of stuff. So yeah, that takes almost 3 years nowadays. The review processes for everything has been expanded, so This gives you time to start working on the project, gives us time, if we're paying for some of that, to give you start working on your project. And then, of course, right-of-way is really blowing up too. NDOT has seen right-of-way condemnations go up to 25%, 20-25%. That's 1 in 4, 1 in 5 project or parcels that you need are going to go to condemnation, which adds another 6 months or something to each project. So,
Yeah, it's.
so
And I
you
think.
can't do anything quick. There's no quick projects. If you want to do it quick, do it yourself. But I've told everybody that, and we've all had these discussions before. So I'm here if anybody's, I know I popped in here because I know someone's going to have a question or two. So, okay.
The various federal agencies are implementing or responding to President Biden's executive order on Justice 40 in different ways. Department of Energy has been very prescriptive. EPA has been less so. Is federal highway people, are they paying any attention to it?
So federal highway guidelines is that they gave us the money and they're slowly rolling out the policies and procedures. So they gave us the money and we are going to spend it. We have to spend it. If we spend it, we lose it. And if they come back and say that something is ineligible, we're at the 50,000 feet right now, maybe we might be at 20,000 feet looking down, so we have a good idea of what things are eligible for. But if they come in and if they come in and are more restrictive, then we will take that into account later when it comes out.
Let's do coffee and I'll go over some of the DOE stuff with you to just kind of give you an update on what other federal agencies are doing with our area and what they want us to see as metrics.
That's a good point, and things are taking time. We have to be aware of this. That's why one of the elected officials out there are new ones. We just had an election. Next year's municipal elections, the cities, we may have some new mayors. They need to be aware that it takes years to put these plans together. It's not instantaneous. And, we'd love to help them get something done within 6 months, but that's just not going to happen. And then you add to it the issues we've always had with the federal government, no matter what the agency is, the guidance is, and we never seem to have that information on a timely basis from our perspective, but we have to play the game.
Or it changes as you're playing the game.
That too.
Did that with the recent grant.
Anything is potential, but the only thing we're guaranteed is change. Anything else for Charles?
I would just say that our next T-Rock meeting is on the 29th. But that's it.
And it starts at 10.
9 o'clock.
9:30.
Oh, you changed it again.
Split the difference, I think.
Yeah, this is a special meeting. We're going to be balancing our budgets for 23, 24, 25, and 26.
All right, talk to
And that's T-Rock for Lake and Porter County.
Yes. We don't have that issue. Fortunately, we don't have that issue in the book.
Any other questions for Charles? Do we have a report from Tri-Clean Indiana? I don't think so. There's other announcements that are listed. Finance and Personnel Committee, December 8th, 8 a.m. Emergency Full Commission Meeting, December 8th at 9 a.m. T-Rock was just announced. EMPC will be January 5th, 2023 at 9 a.m. STC meeting will be January 10th at 1 o'clock. The Land Use Committee meeting will be January 11th at 10 in 2023. And 3PC will be January 12th, 2023 at 1:30. Tonight, Willow Creek Extension will be presented by Structure Point at the Expo Center in Porter County, Indiana, on a division of 49. If you're interested, that starts at 5:30. Do we have any reports from any of the technical committees other than that? And our next TPC meeting will be January 10th, 2023 at 10 a.m. Same place, same time.
Can you send out a new calendar invite for, because I managed to lose mine, and I go, so that it's reoccurring for this committee?
Oh, we don't send calendar invites, they're on the Nursery web.
That explains why it's on my.
Yeah.
You're gonna make me?
I
put it on
get
my
to go on
calendar?
there manually when we get the meeting announcement. But invite would be next time.
Come to think of it, that's what I do too. I just take it right off the webpage.
I'm not that talented.
And I do have an announcement from staff. We do have a natural hazard resiliency needs assessment workshop. Try to say that fast. That'll be happening at 11:30, so we ask that you please, if you're not going to be here for this, to please clear the room so we can set up for that immediately after this meeting.
It's no later than 11:15.
I'd mentioned that we were doing a plan on bike share and bike rental availability on our system. We actually have a live survey out on getting preferences and opinions on that. I'm not sure if it's going to be tweeted by NERC, but it is on our website and it's on all of our social media, Gary Transit. I think it closes this week, but we want to use that information to determine how we spend the money in the Legacy Foundation that they gave us for this. We want to put out at least a couple of bike sharing kiosks on our system, determining what area and what type of infrastructure we're going to put up there. That's what we use surveys for.
At the very least, maybe we can just put a link to your survey. But it concludes at the end of this week.
I believe so. I have to double check.
Well,
We'll get it out
regardless.
for a couple of weeks.
Anything else good for the cause? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Mr. Odell, second. We're adjourned. Thank you. And you're all welcome to stay for the next meeting.
Thank you, Nuggets.
See all these kids.